Welcome to BBC News, broadcasting to viewers in North America and around the globe. I'm Duncan Golestani. Our top stories. Top party officials meet President Jacob Zuma as pressure continues to grow on the South African leader to leave office. Two trains collide in the US state of South Carolina, killing 2 people with more than 100 injured. Protesters in Greece call on the government not to allow its northern neighbour to call itself Macedonia. And defrosting relations on the ice. North and South Korean women play their first hockey match together ahead of the Winter Olympics. And it's no surprise that Moscow gets wintry weather, but it doesn't get much worse than this. Hello, welcome to the programme. Reports from South Africa suggest that President Jacob Zuma has refused to stand down during talks with senior officials from his ruling party. A meeting to discuss his future was held at his official residence in Pretoria, but Mr Zuma, who is 75, is facing allegations of corruption. He's previously survived several votes of no confidence in Parliament. Andrew Harding reports now from Johannesburg.
He is swamped by scandal. South Africa's President Jacob Zuma has already been found guilty of breaking his oath of office when he upgraded his private home lavishly at the taxpayers' expense. More recently, his friendship with a controversial business family, the Guptas, has fueled allegations of massive corruption, state capture they call it here. During the Zuma presidency, South Africa has floundered, the economy struggling, unemployment soaring, amid a sense that senior officials could get away with anything. But in December, Zuma and his allies lost control of the governing ANC. The new man, Cyril Ramaphosa, promising to end impunity.
Everyone agrees that our state was captured by people who purported to be close to the president, who have been doing really bad things in getting into many state institutions.
And suddenly there's real change in the air here. Prosecutors seizing this state farm in connection with alleged fraud by the Gupta family and government officials, and the courts pursuing corruption charges against President Zuma himself.
I think these are really historic moments in South African politics. In all likelihood, you're going to see arrests and big people being caught up in this, because a wheel is turning, momentum is developing, and I don't think there is any turning back.
For now, Zuma is clinging to his job. In places like Zimbabwe and Kenya, we've seen this sort of situation turn ugly and dangerous. But South Africa is still a robust democracy, and so, whether he's pushed or he jumps, President Zuma will soon be out of power and, most likely, in court on corruption charges. It is a moment of drama and optimism for a country poised to exit the troubled Zuma era. Andrew Harding, BBC News, Johannesburg.
2 people have been killed and more than 100 injured in a rail crash in the US state of South Carolina. An Amtrak passenger train travelling between New York and Miami collided with a freight service with more than 140 people on board. South Carolina's governor said it appeared the passenger train had been on the wrong track at the time of the crash.
Horrible thing to see, to understand the force that's involved. I mean, 2 trains, that's about as forceful as you can get. The engine of the first engine of the freight train, of course, was torn up, and the single engine of the passenger train, the Amtrak train, which was headed south, was barely recognizable. It's quite a crash.
For whatever reason, the switch, and when I talk about a switch, I'm talking about a rail switch that can actually switch how the track goes from here to here. For whatever reason, that switch was, as they say in the railroad industry, lined and locked, which basically means it was aligned for the trains coming down this way to be diverted into the siding.
That was the latest from safety officials. Well, earlier our correspondent David Willis gave us more details about those who died and said the crash could prompt renewed discussion about rail safety.
Its employees, the 54-year-old engineer and the 32-year-old conductor. Now, this is the third fatal collision on the U.S. railway system in as many months, and that's prompted the Governor of South Carolina, Henry McMaster, to call for a renewed discussion about rail safety in this country. Congress hasn't actually passed a long-term funding measure for the Amtrak railway system. For the last 10 years, it's relied on short-term, ongoing systems with basically existing funding levels being maintained. And President Trump, of course, has mooted plans for a big infrastructure program, about $1 trillion. It's unclear, though, how much of that, if any, would go towards actually enhancing the nation's railway system here. Particularly in certain parts of the country, on the west coast and to the east coast as well. 30 million people a year, more than that in fact, travel by train. And Amtrak is saying that based on that, its safety record is pretty good. But I have to say, the National Transportation Safety Board, which is the federal authority which looks into accidents of the kind that happened in South Carolina today, found a deficient culture, as it put it, when it looked into a recent derailment back at the end of last year. And there is certainly concern about safety levels, given, as I say, this being the third fatal incident of its kind within as many months.
David Willis in Washington for us. OK, let's take a look at some more stories making the news now. And the only surviving suspect of the terror attacks that killed 130 people at the Bataclan in Paris goes on trial in Belgium later on Monday. Salah Abdeslam was captured in Brussels 4 months after the French attacks in 2015. The charges he faces are not related to those attacks, but to a shootout with the police while he was on the run in Belgium. China has accused the United States of exaggerating Beijing's nuclear strength, saying it needs to ditch what it calls a Cold War mentality. The statement comes after Washington unveiled a new nuclear policy which included plans to diversify its nuclear armory with smaller bombs. The Chinese Defense Ministry said the US had engaged in presumptuous speculation about Beijing's intentions. Voting is taking place in Costa Rica's presidential election after a campaign dominated by same-sex marriage. Last month, the Inter-American Court of Human Rights ruled that such alliances should be recognized, but the ruling led to a backlash. In recent weeks, a conservative Christian preacher, Fabrizio Alvarado, has surged to the top of the opinion polls. Hundreds of thousands of Greeks have protested in Athens against the use of the name Macedonia by the country's northern neighbour. The Macedonian government says its country has been known as Macedonia for a long time. Greece is blocking its ambition to join the European Union and NATO until the issue is resolved. Richard Forrest explains.
They came in their tens of thousands from the Greek mainland and its many islands. Athens turned into a sea of blue and white Greek flags. Protesters said the crowd size was even bigger than the rallies against austerity of the past few years. There were people of all generations and from all walks of life, from mayors to monks, as well as heroes of the Greek resistance. The row dates back to 1991, when Macedonia gained independence. Greece objects to it using the name Macedonia and also says there are contentious articles in its neighbour's constitution that could imply territorial claims over its northern region. Last week, Greek ministers held talks with the United Nations envoy to try and help resolve the issue. All sides are pushing to settle the dispute this year. The Greek government has accused the far right and the neo-Nazi Golden Dawn Party of exploiting the issue. Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras said the majority of people wanted foreign policy to be conducted rationally and not with fanaticism. Ministers say the rallies won't stop them trying to solve the problem and boosting stability in the often tense Balkan region. Richard Forrest, BBC News.
North and South Korea, two nations which remain technically at war, have put on an unprecedented show of sporting collaboration, fielding a joint women's ice hockey team. The friendly match against Sweden took place on the outskirts of South Korea's capital, Seoul, as the country prepares to host the Winter Olympics. Our Seoul correspondent Laura Becker sent us this report.
Fierce and determined, the Korean players head onto the rink to prove they're not just pawns in a political drama or an experiment in sports diplomacy. They fight hard against high-ranking Sweden, willed on by a crowd eager to witness a piece of history and waving the flag of a unified Korea.
I was so touched. I feel so good because I felt the passion of the players, and it felt like we were one together.
It was very meaningful to all of us, and especially for my son, it was a very meaningful event.
But this team's formation has been controversial. The South Korean hockey coach has had to tell players she's worked with for years that they've lost their spot, to make way for North Koreans, such as Chung Soo-hyun. We're not allowed to ask the North Koreans any questions at the press conference, but the South Korean coach was frank when I asked her about the challenges.
So adding players that close to the Olympics that haven't been with us for the last 4 years, learning our systems, kind of understanding how our team plays, is difficult. North Korean is different than South Korean language. So for our team meetings, it's going through to English, to South Korean, to North Korean. So the meetings take 3 times as long, and it's really hard when, you have 3 different languages on one team.
The event feels like a celebration, but playing as one team under one flag has not been welcomed by the younger generation in South Korea. To them, unifying the two countries is a very distant goal.
The problem with the young generation and their sentiment toward North Korea is they do not really trust them. And they have seen, and we all have seen, flip-flopping and breaking the promises by the North Korea. So they do not really share the feeling of like a one nation with North Korea.
The North Korean players will not stay with their teammates at the Athletes' Village. They'll be kept in separate accommodation and watched over by minders. Sweden won the match today, 3-1. But for North and South Korea, fielding a joint team will be viewed as a small victory for diplomacy. Laura Bicker, BBC News, Seoul.
Now, in case you missed it, it is of course Super Bowl Sunday. The New England Patriots are currently going head-to-head with the Philadelphia Eagles in a frozen stadium in Minnesota. This is the 52nd Super Bowl, one of the big TV events of the US calendar, watched by millions around the world. The Philadelphia Eagles went into the game as the underdogs, a badge they wear proudly with many fans sporting dog masks. And they are ahead though, 41-33 in the final quarter of what has been a nail-biting match. We will of course keep you updated right through the game. Stay with us here on BBC News. There's plenty still to come, including why do so many South Korean men use beauty products? We'll hear from a YouTube vlogger who's trying to change perceptions about men and makeup.
This is the moment that millions in Iran have been waiting for. After his long years in exile, the first hesitant steps of Ayatollah Khomeini on Iranian soil.
South Africa's white government has offered its black opponents concessions unparalleled in the history of apartheid. The ban on the African National Congress is lifted immediately, and the ANC Nelson Mandela, after 27 years in jail, is to be set free unconditionally.
The aircraft was returning from Belgrade, where Manchester United had entered the semi-final of the European Cup.
2 Americans have become the first humans to walk in space without any lifeline to their spaceship. One of them called it a piece of cake.
Thousands of people have given the yachtswoman Ellen MacArthur a spectacular homecoming in the Cornish port of Falmouth after she smashed the world record for sailing solo around the world non-stop.
Hello, welcome back. You're watching BBC News, the latest headlines. South Africa's President Jacob Zuma comes under further pressure as top ANC officials try to persuade him to stand down. And 2 trains have collided in the US state of South Carolina, killing 2 people with more than 100 injured. Talks in Germany between Angela Merkel's Christian Democrats and the Social Democrats on forming a coalition government will now run into another day. Both parties had been aiming to finalise a deal during talks over the weekend, but it's understood they still have outstanding issues to resolve. Our Berlin correspondent Damien McGuinness said the uncertainty could have wider consequences for the EU.
She's already tried once to form a government with the Liberals and the Green Party. Those talks collapsed in November. This now, the potential government with the centre-left Social Democrats, is her only chance. If those talks fail, that would seriously undermine her credibility. And the most likely outcome then would be fresh elections. That would lead to a long period of instability here in Germany and potentially no new government until the autumn, really. And there's no guarantee after all that. We wouldn't find ourselves in exactly the same position as we are now, where, you know, a potential chancellor would find it hard to cobble together a coalition. Now, it has to be said, as you say, there's a caretaker government. There's no sense of crisis here in Germany. The economy is doing well. So with this caretaker government, in the short term, things are ticking along nicely. The economy is booming. But what it does mean is there's no ability for this temporary government to take long-term decisions, such as reform, and particularly when it comes to Europe. And so this is, of course, a problem for the whole of the EU. President Macron has been waiting for a long time to push through an ambitious period of reform. If a government's not in place, France can't do that, Germany can't support France, and that could potentially also have an impact on Brexit, because a disunited and uncertain Europe would also be less inclined or less able to even strike a good deal with Britain on Brexit.
Well, let's pick up on Damien McGuinness's last point there, because the British Home Secretary has played down the government's internal divisions over Brexit at the start of a crucial week in the negotiations. Amber Rudd said the cabinet was more united than the Prime Minister's critics thought. On Monday, the European Union's chief negotiator, Michel Barnier, will be in London for talks, and the UK's Brexit committee will meet later this week, seeking an agreement on the way forward. Our political correspondent, Eleanor Garnier, reports.
Putting the UK on the world map. Last week, the Prime Minister was making friends in China and signing billions of pounds of business deals. But this week, it's her own cabinet she needs to win over, amid claims of disunity about the type of Brexit they want.
I have a surprise for the Brexiteers, which is the committee that meets in order to help make these decisions, that's meeting, as you rightly say, twice this week, is more united than they think. We meet in the committee, we meet privately for discussions. I think that we will arrive at something which suits us all.
Exactly how we trade with the EU after Brexit is the source of division in the Tories. Some want complete disentanglement from Brussels. Others hope to stay as close to the EU as possible. The Home Secretary believes the government's priorities are clear.
We want frictionless trade at the border. We want to make sure there's no border on the island of Ireland. And we want to make sure that we can do trade deals outside of the European Union. That's the deal we're looking for.
But it's clear to all in the Conservative Party how difficult it will be to get everyone on side.
There are inherent tensions in dealing with Brexit because different people take different views. It's not just in the Conservative Party, it's not just in the Labour Party, it's across the country. And actually we need a bit of a team effort here, that's what I'm saying, loud and clear.
So far, the Prime Minister's prevented the decades-old split in the Conservative Party over Europe from spilling out into something more serious, something which could spell a crisis for her government. But with crucial ministerial meetings later this week to pin down an agreed position on our future relationship with the EU, Theresa May will finally have to pick a path. And whichever she chooses, she risks making a large swathe of her party unhappy. But it's not just a battle at home. Winning in Brussels is key too. And with more negotiations with the EU this week, the next few days could be pivotal for the Prime Minister. Eleanor Garnier, BBC News, Westminster.
A few moments ago, I promised to keep you up to date with the score in the Super Bowl in the United States. So here we go. The Philadelphia Eagles have defeated the New England Patriots to win the Super Bowl. And I think That is a bit of an upset because the Patriots were the favourites to win that. So there we are, the Eagles have beaten the Patriots to win the National Football League Super Bowl in the United States. We'll try and get some reaction to that in the next few minutes, hopefully. OK, let's take a look at some more stories making the news now. And the US Secretary of State Rex Tillerson says America cannot stand by with arms crossed while democracy in Venezuela is being destroyed. Speaking in Argentina, Mr. Tillerson said the US was looking closely at imposing sanctions on Venezuela's oil industry to pressure President Nicolas Maduro into allowing free and fair elections. Lloyds Banking Group said on Sunday it would ban its credit card customers from buying Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. The bank fears it could end up footing the bill for unpaid debts should the price fall further. People will still be able to buy digital currencies with their debit cards. And Nikos Anastasiadis has won re-election for a second term in the presidential election in Cyprus. The Conservative incumbent got 55% of the vote. He has promised to restart peace talks with Turkish Cypriots who govern the north of the island. Moscow has seen its heaviest snowfall in a day since records began, with thousands of trees brought down, power lines damaged and air travel disrupted. More than half the monthly average snowfall fell on Saturday, beating the previous record set in 1957. Sarah Corker has more.
This is what it takes to keep Moscow moving. An army of snowplows at the city's airports trying to keep runways clear. But nearly 150 flights have been severely delayed and dozens cancelled. The Russian capital has seen more than half its average monthly snowfall in the space of 24 hours, up to 17 inches of snow blanketing the city's landmarks. This is the view of the Kremlin. And for those who ventured out, it was a challenge to get moving. Lorries, coaches and cars are getting stuck on the snowy roads.
There's been a lot of snowfall over the last 2 weeks. We've put in a lot of extra effort and working faster. I think it'll be like this until March.
One person died after a falling tree hit a power line and 5 others were injured. In fact, 2,000 trees have been brought down and people have been warned to steer clear of frozen branches. This is Moscow's heaviest snowfall in a day since records began, and while it is expected to ease off overnight, temperatures are forecast to drop to -10. Sarah Corker, BBC News.
And finally, here's a fact for you. South Korean men spend more than men anywhere else in the world on skincare products. Walking around parts of Seoul, you can also see men wearing makeup. Many say it's about boosting self-confidence and self-esteem. We've been to meet a YouTube vlogger trying to change perceptions of men and makeup.
안녕하세요, 한이입니다. 오늘은 간단하게 할 수 있는 메이크업을 준비해봤습니다. 그럼 바로 메이크업 시작할게요. 렛츠 고! 뿅!
립밤이고요. 네, 이렇게.
저는 얼굴 각질 제거한 뒤에 그 다음 팩 하고 있어요.
제가 원래 중학교 3학년 때 되게 여드름이 이제 폭발하는 시기였어요. 화장이라는 그런 수단이 있더라고요. 그래서 컨실러, 화장품, 파운데이션 그런 거를 막 사모으면서 이렇게 발라보니까 메이크업을 할 때는 조금 더 안 했을 때보다는 당당해지는 기분이 듭니다.
수분크림을 꼬박꼬박 바르고 있습니다.
5년 사이에 K-팝이 많이 발전을 했잖아요. 그러면서 그 아이돌들의 메이크업을 따라하기도 하고, 그리고 그 아이들이 뭔가 여자들의 전유물이었던 뭐 아이라인이라든지 뭐 틴트라든지 이런 것들을 조금씩 해가면서.
And before we go, just a quick reminder of what is happening at the Super Bowl in the United States, because the Philadelphia Eagles have beaten the New England Patriots 41-33, and that is a bit of an upset because the Eagles were thought to be the underdogs going into that, but they will be celebrating tonight in the United States. That's the way it's looking this hour. Stay with us here on BBC News.